change our currency.
The time period for its implementation.
The CBN governor have in the past shown absolute disrespect for these 𝗪𝗂𝗀𝗲𝗏s.
This is not a war-torn country, but some warring nations can proudly say they have had it better than the people living here right now. Nigeria claims to be the biggest economy in Africa, but the last few weeks have exposed the cracks in that economy. There are long queues at banking halls and ATMs. People are sleeping on the road in their quest for fuel, and those with some money left in their accounts don't even have access to be able to feed their families. A father had to strip himself naked in a banking hall in protest as financial institutions continue to deny customers access to their cash. Angry customers are taking it out on the commercial banks, destroying private properties as a result, with workers of these financial institutions having to escape from their premises by jumping the fence as they run for their lives. The country is gradually descending into chaos, but the civilians are not alone in causing this trouble. Some few days back, men of the Nigerian military visited a university late at night, destroying private properties and beating up anyone they could find. They were reportedly reacting to an altercation they had had with students and security operatives of the school. But let's pause here for a second to ask, what's beneath this anarchy brewing in the most populous black nation on earth? While the simple answer to that is cash, or should I say currency shortage, my question going into this is, do we have a conspiracy to sabotage the elections? Or is this just a good policy wrongly executed?
I believe the CBN deceived the president.
It started with an announcement from the CBN that it was redesigning the Naira notes.
Currencies should be redesigned or replaced or reissued every 5 to 8 years.
The initial reason given for this policy was that some individuals were keeping huge piles of banknotes in their homes and other not so good to mention places. Over 85% of the currency in circulation at the time was held outside the vaults of commercial banks. So basically, this policy was aimed at recalling those notes back into the control of the banks. According to the CBN, this policy was also aimed at controlling the volatility of the Naira. Some Nigerians kicked against it. Some said it was a welcome development, but some saw it as a means to make more money for the political establishment. That assumption is quite interesting, and I would love to dive into that rabbit hole someday, but for this one, I was curious as to why the finance minister said this.
Really, you should call the monetary authorities because they're the competent authority to do this. We were not consulted. It was an announcement that we heard.
Her denial of the policy didn't stop the president from endorsing it. So it immediately appeared to Nigerians that the president was not keeping his cabinet in the loop of what was going on, or the cabinet was simply not catching on. But more drama was on the way. Political office holders started calling for the head of the CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele. Simply out of the blues, corruption allegations started flying around of money laundering and even some serious allegations of terror financing against the governor. I promise to get you the juicy story of Godwin Emefiele in another video. However, with all the threats, the CBN was not backing down on the redesigned policy. Neither was the president. As the deadline for the return of the old notes drew closer, pictures and videos of old decaying notes started surfacing in the news. Somehow, the policy had forced some powerful hands to bring out Naira from all manner of hideouts such as soccerways, dugouts, and even water tanks, but there were pushbacks from the political establishment. It started when the president, Muhammadu Buhari, and the CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele, unveiled the new notes to the general public. Nigerians were not immediately happy with the new designs, with some saying it was poorly done and money wasted. But as the mockery online subsided, the bigger challenge was soon to follow. The CBN kept on insisting that the general public return their old notes and exchange for new ones. But no one seems to be seeing new notes anywhere. The Apex Bank had somehow printed fewer notes than required, and it was like they wanted this policy to kickstart an era of some sort of cashless economy. This miscalculation gave birth to a new crisis. No old currency allowed, few new currencies available. So Who will control the new notes?
No economy is guided by cash.
Senator Akman, take your seat.
No one individual can be greater than Nigeria.
The elites that have usually advised average Nigerians to manage and get through the daily challenges they face are now beginning to care more for the common person. These powerful men and women are no longer telling the poor masses to manage. They now want to fight for the masses, some sort of overnight advocates and activists. All of a sudden, some power brokers were concerned about the challenges ordinary Nigerians pass through to get their old notes changed. But it got worse when political parties started trading blames, with the candidate of the ruling party accusing some members of his own party of creating the crisis to ensure he doesn't win the election. Now, if this were true, then it would be so bad, knowing how well he means for Nigeria, if you know what I mean. Few days after this rant by the APC candidate, a sitting governor of one of the northern states, someone considered an elder statesman that used to be a hardcore supporter of the president, asked Mr. Buhari in a letter to postpone his planned visit to his state due to security concerns and complaints from locals about difficulty in obtaining the new Naira notes. President Buhari was originally scheduled to visit this northern state to commission some projects, but now that was being pushed back because of his decision to side with the CBN governor and refuse all pressure to push the deadline for the return of old notes. But just about a few hours later, the CBN governor delivered a speech right in front of Aso Rock, saying this:
We have today sought and obtained Mr. President's approval for the following. 1. A 10-day extension of the deadline from January 31, 2023 to February 10, 2023 to allow for collection of more old notes.
Now that the deadline was pushed, something miraculous happened. The security concerns about Mr. President's visit to the northern state was no longer an issue, and the governor was now ready to welcome the president. But while this move to extend by 10 days pacified some sections of critics, lawmakers in the National Assembly were not going to let this policy stand. They threatened to arrest the CBN governor if he didn't appear before them to answer questions. As this show continues to roll on, Nigerians keep asking, why are these politicians so concerned about this particular policy that would mop up money from the economy? Why are the lawmakers fighting so hard to maintain the status quo? Why are some politicians not ready to submit their cash to the banks? The new policy that would have prevented vote buying by these politicians is now being labeled as a conspiracy to sabotage the elections. A bank manager in Abuja was picked up by agents of the EFCC for allegedly hoarding 29 million naira of the new naira notes, refusing to load the bank's ATMs even though many customers were waiting in line to access their funds. This was days after the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission (ICPC) said it arrested 2 bank officials in Osun State for refusing to load these ATMs with cash. In another instance, the bank loaded its ATM with the new notes wrapped in nylons to prevent them from dispensing to customers. This economic sabotage by the banks is clearly an indication of some dark conspiracy going on. For the first time in history, Nigerians are having to spend the naira to buy the naira, but the black market this time is the roadside POS. So, if the new notes are available in limited supply, how are POS agents able to get hold of them? Who is supplying them and why are they selling it? But it is not just the banks frustrating the people now. The politicians running for this election and their rhetoric have resulted in protests around the nation, with some turning violent and ugly. Every election cycle has seen politicians use Nigerians to cause chaos because it somehow creates a perfect atmosphere for them to introduce malpractice into the process. This time though, they only had to cry and shout about how the CBN policy is affecting the masses. They have capitalized on the suffering of the public to incite protests, destabilizing the country as a result. And some, I'm not certain, this is speculative now, are getting these new naira notes from the banks, hoarding the notes, possibly at a higher price. So at the end of the day, vote buying could still be a thing in this election. As with everything in Nigeria, we are not certain about what the cause of the shortage is. Could it be that the CBN printed so little and the banks are just getting the sticks for it? Or could it be that politicians who control major accounts in some of these banks have somehow got into the managers and top executives and are hoarding these notes for their principals? And there is a third hypothesis here. Could it be that this was an ill thought out policy that once again shows just how far Nigeria has fallen and in need of redemption? Which do you think is the scenario here? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon. Also, do well to check out this video showing up on your screen right now, and I'll see you inside.